Hamsa Paracharya also tell us that Srimad, His Divine Grace, Abhaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON founder, Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nandagoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya. Srila Haridas Thakur Jai, Say Kaho Shri Krishna, Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktan Vrinda Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Swayam Kunda Radkunda Kiti Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Ki Jai, Mathuram Ki Jai, Sami Ki Jai, Yamuna Ki Jai, Srimati Vilasadevi
Hari Hari.
All glory is the assembled.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
All glory is the assembled.
Hare Krishna.
All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Jai Vishnu Padaya. Krishna Prasad. Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste.
Saraswati Devi.
Gurbani Puchari, Shinivadi, Paschatya, Deshitari, Shilpopad. So today we're reading the 6th canto, 5th chapter, text 20. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Shastrasya Pitur Adesham Yo Dana Veda Vartakam Katam Tad Anurupaya Guna Visrambe Upakramat Shastrasya Pituradesham Yona Veda Nivartakam Kantananurupaya Guna Visram Upakramat Shastrasya Pituradesham Yona Veda Nivartakam Kantananurupaya Guna Visram Upakramat Shastrasya Pituradesham Yona Veda Nivartakam Kantananurupaya Guna Visram Upakramat
Shastrasya Pituradesham Yona Veda Nivartakam Katham tad anurupaya Guna Vishram Upakrame Shastrasya Pituradesham Yona Veda Nivartakam Katham tadanurupaya Guna Visram Upakramet
Shastrasya Pituradesham Yona Veda Nivartakam Katham tadanurupaya तदानुरूपाय
कथं तदनुरूपाय
गुणविश्रम्योपक्रमेत्
गुणविश्रम्योपक्रमेत्
शास्त्रस्य पितुरादेशं
शास्त्रस्य पितुरादेशं
यो न वेद निवर्तकं
यो न वेद निवर्तकं
कथं तत् अनुरूपास्य
कथं तदनुरूपाय
गुणाविश्रम उपाक्रमे
गुणविश्रम्योपक्रमेत्
Ladies,
शास्त्रस्य पितुरादेशं
शास्त्रस्य पितुरादेशं
यो न वेदानिवर्तकं
यो न वेद निवर्तकं
कथं तन् अनुरूपाय
कथं तदनुरूपाय
गुणविश्राम उपक्रमे
गुणविश्रम्योपक्रमेत्
शास्त्रस्य पितुरादेशं
शास्त्रस्य पितुरादेशं
यो न वेदानिवर्तकं
यो न वेद निवर्तकं
कथं तत् अनुरूपाय
कथं तदनुरूपाय
गुणाविश्रम्भे उपक्रमे
गुणविश्रम्योपक्रमेत्
okay. Shastrasya
शास्त्रस्य
of the scriptures.
of the scriptures
Pituhu
Pituhu
of the father.
of the Father
Adesham
Adesham
the instruction.
the instruction
Ya
Ya
one who.
one who
Na
Na
not.
not
Veda
Veda
understands.
understands
Nivartakam
Nivartakam
which brings about the cessation
which brings about the cessation
of the material way of life.
of the material way of life.
Katam
Katam
how.
how
Tat anurupaya
Tat anurupaya
to follow the instruction of the Shastras.
to follow the instructions of the Shastras.
Gunavistrambi
Gunavishramhi
a person entangled in the three modes of material nature.
a person entangled in the three modes of material nature.
Upakramat
Upakramet
can engage in the creation of progeny.
can engage in the creation of progeny.
So, translation. Narada Muni had asked how one could ignorantly defy one's own father. The Haryashvas understood the meaning of this question. One must accept the original instructions of the Shastra. According to Vedic civilization, one is offered a sacred thread as a sign of second birth. One takes his second birth by dint of having received instructions in the Shastra from a bona fide spiritual master. Therefore, Shastra scripture is the real father. All the Shastras instruct that one should end his material way of life. If one does not know the purpose of the Father's orders, the Shastras, he is ignorant. The words of a material father who endeavors to engage his son in material activities are not the real instructions of the Father. It's a really heavy verse. So, purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki
Jai.
Jai. Bhagavad Gita in the 16th chapter, text 7 says, Pravatim cha nivritim cha janatna vidur asura. Demons who are less than human beings, but are not called animals, do not know the meaning of pravati and nivriti. Work to be done and work not to be done. In the material world, every living entity has a desire to lord it over the material world as much as possible. This is called pravritti marg. Marg means like the path. So all the Shastras, however, advise nivriti marg, or release from the materialistic way of life. Apart from the Shastras of the Vedic civilization, which is the oldest of the world, other Shastras agree on this point. For example, in the Buddhist Shastras, Lord Buddha advises that one achieve nirvana by giving up the materialistic way of life. In the Bible also, which is also Shastra, one will find the same advice. One should cease materialistic life and return to the kingdom of God. In any Shastra, one may examine, especially the Vedic Shastra, the same advice is given. One should give up his materialistic life and return to his original spiritual life. Shankaracharya also propounds the same conclusion. Brahma Satcha, Satcham, Jagan Mithya. This material world and materialistic life is simply illusion, and therefore one should stop his illusory activities and come to the platform of Brahman. The word Shastra refers to the scriptures, particularly. Thank you. Okay. So the word Shastra refers to the scriptures, particularly the Vedic. Nice warm water. That's good. The warm water is good. Thank you. Particularly the Vedic books of knowledge, the Vedas, Sama, Yajur, Vedic, and Atharva, and any other books deriving knowledge from these Vedas are considered Vedic literatures. Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all Vedic knowledge, and therefore it is the scripture whose instructions should be especially accepted. In this essence of all Shastras, Krishna personally advises that one give up all other duties and surrender unto him. Sarvadhamam Prityaja, Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraja. Bhagavad Gita 1866. One should be initiated into following the principles of Shastra. In offering initiation, our Krishna consciousness movement asks one to come to the conclusion of Shastra by taking the advice of the supreme speaker of the Shastra, Krishna. Forgetting the principles of the materialistic way of life. Therefore, the principles we advise are no illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling, and no eating. These 4 types of engagement will enable an intelligent person to get free from materialistic life and return home back to Godhead. In regard to the instructions of the father and mother, it may be said that every living entity, including the insignificant cats and dogs and serpents, take birth of a father and mother. Therefore, getting a material father and mother is not a problem. In every form of life, birth after birth, the living entity gets a father and mother. In human society, however, if one is satisfied with his material father and mother and their instructions and does not make further progress by accepting the spiritual master and being educated in these Shastras, he certainly remains in darkness. The material father and mother are important only if they are interested in educating their son to become free from the clutches of death. As instructed by Rishabhadeva, 5th canto, 5th chapter, text 18. Vitam sasya janani sasya namochiyadya samupetya mrityu. One should not strive to become a mother or father if one cannot save one's dependent son from the impending danger of death. A parent who does not know how to save his son has no value because such fathers and mothers may be had in any form of life, even among the cats, dogs, and so on. Only a father and mother who can elevate their son to the spiritual platform are bona fide parents. Therefore, according to the Vedic system, it is said, Janmana Jayate Shudra. One is born of the material father and mother as a Shudra. The purpose of life, however, is to become a Brahmin, a first-class man. A first-class intelligent man is called a Brahmin because he knows the Supreme Brahman, the absolute truth. According to the Vedic instructions, Tad Viganartham Sadhguru Eva Jivachet. That's a Mundaka Upanishad 1-12. To know this science, one must approach a bona fide guru, a spiritual master, who will initiate the disciple with a sacred thread so that he may understand the Vedic knowledge. Janmana jayati shudra samskara luennoija. Becoming a Brahmin through the endeavor of a bona fide spiritual master is called samskara. After initiation, one is engaged in study of the Shastra, which teaches the student how to gain release from materialistic life and return home back to Godhead. The Krishna conscious movement is teaching this higher knowledge of retiring from materialistic life to return to Godhead. But unfortunately, many parents are not very satisfied with this movement. Aside from the parents of our students, many businessmen are also dissatisfied because we teach our students to abandon intoxication, meat eating, illicit sex, and gambling. If the Krishna conscious movement spreads, the so-called businessmen will have to close their slaughterhouses, breweries, even Finnish beer. It's finished. Finnish beer is finished. And cigarette factories. Therefore, they are also very much afraid. However, we have no alternative than to teach our disciples to free themselves from materialistic life. We must instruct them in the opposite of material life to save them from the repetition of birth and death. Narada Muni therefore advised the Haryashvas, the sons of Prajapati Daksha, that instead of begetting progeny, it would be better to leave and achieve the perfection of spiritual understanding according to the instructions of the Shastras. The importance of the Shastras is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, the 16th chapter, text 23. Shastra reading, Usraja Vardade Kamakadata, Nasasiddhim Bhakti, Nasukam, Naparam Gati. One who disregards the injunctions of the Shastras and acts whimsically as he likes never achieves the perfection of life, not to speak of happiness, nor does he return home to the spiritual world. Wow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, so we're going to read the verse again. Shastra Shapiturhadesham Yona Veda Nivartakam Amtadanu Upaya Guna Vishram Yupakramet. So we're going to do that Vishah. Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So, let me just read two quotes that I noted down here. Prabhupada says the same thing. This is from a class that Prabhupada is giving. So, the material world, the variety is a reflection of the spiritual world. Here is also Father, but this is imitation Father. You gotta be careful when you tell it too. But there is also Father, but that is not Father, that is real Father. It is imitation Father, it is in the mature world. A friend is imitation friend. Real friend is Krishna. Real Father is Krishna. Here, husband, sorry for those who are married, imitation husband. Prabhupada's words, don't blame me. Real imitation husband, repeat that. Here, husband, imitation husband. Real husband is Krishna. Master, imitation master. That's a spiritual master. Real master is Krishna. Another quote by Prabhupada. This is really nice quotes. That is explained by Chaitanya Charitamrita. That reality, real Father, if you accept Krishna as your Father, oh, he'll give you all protection. If you accept Krishna as your husband, oh, there's no question of divorce. Because Krishna's in your heart. There's no question of divorce. If you accept Krishna as your friend, oh, Krishna will give you everything. Of course, that reminds me of the verse 529 in the Gita, isn't it? Bhoktaram Jagatapasam Sarvalok Maheshram Suridam Sarvalutanam Ketwalam Shanti. If you want him to be peaceful, then Bhoktaram Jagatapasam. You have to understand that Krishna is the enjoyer of all sacrifices. He's your friend, Suridam Sarvalutanam, right? Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, he's in charge of everything, he's the controller of everything. And he's your Surit. Surit actually means not just friend, it means someone who really, it's a heart, you have a good heart. Actually, Surit, it means heart. So Krishna has a good heart. And he's in your heart. And he's always embracing you. He's always waiting for you. I mean, how many people are faithful like that? That no matter what you do, they just watch you even though they think you're a rascal. Like Krishna is just like watching, what are those rascals doing? He's drinking beer. This rascal, he's watching Bollywood movies. So, and Krishna's just waiting. And he never gives us up. So he's Suridam Sarabhutanam Yatvam Shanti Richati. So interesting verse. So let's go back to Daksha, because I thought it's quite interesting that Daksha is actually doing bona fide service. It's not that Daksha is completely in Maya. You shouldn't think like that. I mean, sometimes he does get into Maya, and he offends Lord Shiva, and he offends Narada Muni, but we'll read about that later on in this portion of Bhagavatam. But he's been given a service by Lord Brahma, hasn't he? What's the service? You got to fill the universe, right? It's like I don't mention this. In certain religions, which shall remain nameless, they're given the service of, let's say, having more of their particular religion in the country than any other religion. So everyone's told to have at least 8 or 10 children, right? I know it. Anyway. Whereas in Finland, everybody has 1.1 child. Because I don't know what a 0.1 of a child looks like. But that, it's an average. It's an average like that. So, but actually, the universe needs to be filled. Why does it need to be filled? Because all these living entities have to have a place in the prison house. This universe is a prison house, right? So you have an empty prison house, it doesn't do much good. And then you got all these living entities that are waiting to take birth in the prison house or the material world. And so it's an opportunity for them to get reformed. That's the purpose of the prison house. So it's a bona fide service. It's like opening, there's someone who's a jailer in the prison house. He's doing a bona fide service for the government, right? No problem. So here he is doing bona fide service for Krishna. Ultimately, Krishna, because he's following Lord Brahma's directions, Lord Brahma's superior body. But why is he being criticized by this sage Narada Muni? I mean, sometimes we find Narada Muni, he tries to convince people to take sannyas. This is another story, pretty about story in Bhagavatam. He tries to get people to take sannyas, and then he has to be overridden by Lord Brahma, right? It's an interesting story. So why is he wrong in this particular context? Well, let's refer to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who talks about causes of anarthas. We all know what anarthas are. Anarthas means unwanted things, right? Like, what don't you want? You don't want it to rain? No, that's not an anartha. This morning we were walking here, it was raining. I said, Krishna, stop it. And he didn't. So anartha,
It's not
isn't it? So anartha basically means something you don't want, but in this particular case, anartha means lust, anger, greed, kama, krodha, mana, matsarya, bhaya, bhaya. These things that are impediments in devotional service. So Vishwanath Chakravarti says anarthas come from several different things. Pious activities, that's interesting, because you think yourself so good. Or sinful activities, that's easy to understand. Or offenses, it's very easy to understand. Sometimes we find people just like overcome with material desires, and that's because they've committed offenses. fences against the holy now, fences against the spiritual master, fences against Christ, fences against the deities. But the final cause of anarthas I found really interesting. The final cause of anarthas is the byproducts of bhakti. What does that mean, exactly, the byproducts of bhakti? That means basically you've been given some service, or as you advance in devotional service, you get proud, prideful. You become very proud. And then, we've seen that even around movement when someone has a high position. As they say, actually Prabhupada said this. Prabhupada said, if you go to Lanka, you become Ravana. Does everybody understand what that means? And if you get a position, like Ravana, you're in charge of Lanka. Lanka, of course, was Ravana's kingdom, for those who don't know. And it goes to your head after a while. Or if you become a guru and you're not qualified, everybody's worshiping you, you get my basis, it's okay, I got lotus feet and everything. Then you start to think, yeah, I must be something special. Right? It happens. Maybe it didn't happen to me yet. But anyway, it happens. Like even a guru gets a book written about him every year. It's called Yes Guru, right? With his pictures, and he gets to look at all the pictures. Oh, I'm so nice. Every night, I look at my book. My bedtime story, the disciple reads me. No, I'm just teasing you. But it's a dangerous situation to be in. So there's danger on the royal road. So it's an interesting point. And of course, Daksha's been given a very high position, and he becomes very proud. As we'll read elsewhere in the Srimad Bhagavatam, he doesn't respect Lord Shiva properly, right? He offends Lord Shiva, and ultimately he gets punished by losing his head. And not only that, it's bad enough to lose your head. It's pretty bad. So he gets a goat head instead. Can you imagine? I mean, I'd rather just lose my head and not have a goat head. But he gets to conduct a sacrifice with a goat head on his head. Because he offended Lord Shiva and created a whole fight there too. So, danger. So Daksha is dealing with something that's quite dangerous, position, and also he has to deal with lust in this material world, because you don't know to create progeny, you need a little lust, you gotta be enthusiastic about it. And so he's overcome like that. So it's a warning for us. It's really a warning. So he has actually been irresponsible insofar as his position. So what should he have done with the Haryashvas and later on the Savalashvas? Should he just told them to take sannyas? No, he should have understood their psychophysical nature and engaged them according to devotional service. Because it's not that a guru or a spiritual guide will tell everybody to take sannyas. It is not. It's not appropriate. Like Prabhupada, in the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, in the story of Gajendra Mokshana, where there's this elephant, Gajendra, who's fighting the crocodile in the water. I'm sure most of you know this story. And he's losing. Why is the elephant losing? He's losing because the crocodile is an element, an animal of the water, and Gajendra is an animal of the land. So Prabhupada comments that one should fight Maya. He's using this as a metaphor. One should fight Maya from a position in which they're comfortable. And for some people that means what? Sannyas. For some people that means grahastha. Other people brahmacharya. This is practical. Practical. The spiritual master like Narada Muni is a very practical person. One of the duties of spiritual master is to engage disciples according to their psychophysical nature. What does that mean? He understands how to engage them in Krishna consciousness. And what is their service? Not only, of course, whether they should be grahasas, vanaprasas, nyasis, brahmacharis, whatever, but what their varna is. And, devotees often talk about varnashram dharma. That's a common topic nowadays. So really what that means is not that we should go around calling people, hey, you're a Kshatriya, you're a Vaishya, you're a Shudra. That's not really what the point. The point is that people need to be doing something that keeps their mind on Krishna. Because as Krishna states in the Gita, that when you do service for him in any form, Brahmapranam, Brahmahavya, Brahmagno, Brahmanam, Brahmatena, Dantavyam, Brahmakarma, Smanam. What does that mean? That if work for Brahman, work for Krishna. Actually, probably the first translation probably gave this verse is quite interesting. He says, one who makes a full offering to Brahman, the offering becomes spiritualized. The person making the offering becomes spiritualized. The activity of offering becomes spiritualized. And the word used in this particular verse in the Gita is kavir. Anyone knows what kavir is? Like ghee or butter. So when you offer butter or ghee into the fire, the sacrificial fire, the ghee actually becomes purified. Before that, it's just material ghee. But when you offer something to Krishna, just like prasad, before we offer food, bhoga, we offer food to Krishna. No one should ever offer prasad to Krishna. You offer bhoga, because Krishna is a bhogi. Did you know that? Yeah, Krishna is a bhogi. He's the enjoyer. If you think you're the enjoyer, you're a bhogi, but that's an insult. I remember being a brahmachari, when we wanted to insult another brahmachari, we'd say, you're a bhogi. Or probably say, like, bhogi, yogi, brogi. I mean, it's really funny. The Prabhupada said if you have to go to the toilet once a time you're a day, you're a yogi, twice you're bhogi, and 3 times you're a rogi. Rogi means what? Sick. You're sick. So Krishna's the enjoyer. So we take the bhoga and we offer it to Krishna, and then by that process it becomes transformed into what? Spirit. And it's Krishna's mercy. We eat it, we become purified. Fine. So it's the same thing. Activities are the same thing. Or anything used in Krishna's service is like this computer that I'm using. A lot of people watching right now. Nice. Just like this computer that I'm using, the microphone I'm using, or the Kindle reading device I'm using. It's spiritualized because I'm using it in Krishna's service. If I start to use it to read something mundane, like some novel or something like that, or I use my computer to watch a Bollywood movie. Unless the movie is actually kind of nice. There's some Bollywood movies that are nice. There's one called Oh My God, which is actually a nice Bollywood movie. It's actually like Krishna conscious philosophy. So then it's mundane. So it's transformation. Like Krishna, Prabhupada said that Krishna is like an expert electrician who can take the same electricity and turn it from heating to cooling, right? So it becomes transformed. So in other words, a guru or guide or real father has to be ready to engage the person in a way where they can transform their activities into spiritual activities. That's practical. And Daksha was not thinking like that. He was thinking, I'm very attached to having kids. This was his consciousness. Because when you're doing something to Krishna, there's a tendency, let's again be an artist, there's a tendency to become attached to the results. Right? You know, just like someone may be preaching, you're attached personally to how many people become devotees because of you. And you become very possessive. My disciple. It's like they used to do in some pradayas, they would put a brand on the devotee when they took initiation. They still do that in Bhagavatam Sampradaya. They have this hot iron. Have you ever heard of this before? We can do that later with you. They have this hot, you know, a brand like they can't put on animals. They put this brand into the fire. Turn real hot and then shh. And then they mark the you know, different symbols of Vishnu. You've seen this before? It's India. Not the Sampradayas. So you tend to become attached to what you're using from Krishna's service, right? My car, my house, my disciples. And that's my temple, you know, my money, my husband, my wife. And then and that's the division of false ego, isn't it? I and mine. It's a division. So it's a whole consciousness. So getting back to our friend Daksha, he was thinking, these are my sons, not thinking what's best for them. My service. And not only that, he was thinking, I want them to get married and have children, not so they probably get you, because his motivation became changed. So I can enjoy their children. You know, Grandpa Daksha. Isn't it? They enjoy the spirit. You know, I can enjoy they can enjoy their children, their grandchildren. Wow, I got everything set for me. And you see that this in India sometimes too, you know, that India and also in the West, that the parents get very upset if their son joins the Hare Krishna movement. Yeah, in certain places in India, you can't get anyone to join any brahmacharya, especially Gujarat.
Oh.
Even if you go to our temples in Gujarat, you see this whole Bengali brahmacharyas there. Isn't that true?
Yes.
There's no. I remember one time in the United States, there was a girl whose parents were devotees, and the girl wanted to die. She should go to the temple. And so the girl wanted to be a devotee. She was very dedicated to Krishna consciousness, you know. And so she comes to the temple. Parents get so upset, and they're devotees too. They're devotees, you know, real devotees, chanting Hare Krishna like this. And they go, "Oh my God, our daughter." And it's, you know, the son is worse because the son is your old age insurance, and son, isn't it? Daughter, you got to give away anyway in the Indian culture, isn't it? You lose the daughter anyway, but she gets married, so you know she goes to another house, another family. But they're so upset, so they grab their daughter, send her to India, and keep her away from the Hare Krishna movement for about 7 years. And then after that, what happens? Oh, then they bring her back to the United States thinking that she's cured by that particular thing. She's overcome her Hare Krishna stuff. And so she leaves her home and comes to the temple. And the parents are freaking. Anyways, I'm not going to get into the rest of the story. It's a sad story, but yeah, it doesn't have a happy ending. But the point is, it's just like they're attached to enjoying through the family members rather than thinking what's best. You know, we do have this enjoying spirit that when we see someone or have some connection with someone, we think, what pleasure can they give me? Instead of what pleasure can they give Krishna or what's best for them. And in America, we experience this quite a bit. Prabhupada experienced this in terms of, in America, we have this deep programming. Did you ever hear about that before? And it's interesting, and some devotees were actually kidnapped by their parents. Western devotees, I'm talking about Indian devotees. They were kidnapped by the parents. I remember one devotee was kidnapped, and I thought I would just rescue the person, which was impossible. So I took a van and I parked it outside of the house where they were holding this devotee captive. And he was spying on the house. And when you're young, you think anything, you can get away with anything. Anyway, couldn't rescue the devotee. And then later on, even my own, with my own parents, after my mother passed away, I saw letters between her and a deprogrammer. She was thinking of hiring a deprogrammer to kidnap me. And this was after I was a sannyasi for 3 or 4 years. And even, I'll tell another story, personal story, is that after I joined the movement, my parents were planning, how to take me away. So one time I went to visit my father, and he introduced me to his friend, the psychiatrist. He said, "Dear son, I'd like you to meet Dr. Freud." I'm sure it was Freud. So he said, "I'd like you to meet Dr. Freud." So I sit down, meet him. My father says, "Oh, I have to go away now, so I'll be back in a little while." So he leaves me alone with this doctor for 2 hours. Obviously, is what we call a setup. You understand setup? And so the doctor is interviewing me. "Are you happy? Do you ever get depressed?" And I say to him, the question is, do you ever get depressed? Are you happy? So by the time I was finished with the doctor, he thought he was crazy. And he told my father, "There's nothing I can do with him." So anyway, so we find this. I mean, even Prabhupada makes reference here to the Buddhist philosophy, but even in the story of Buddha, the same thing was happening, wasn't it? And Buddha, okay, here's the story of Gautama Buddha. After Buddha was born, they did a whole horoscope. And that horoscope showed that he's going to renounce this world. And the parents were thinking, "Oh my God, we don't want to give him an opportunity to renounce this world." So what they did, they didn't want him to understand there was birth, death, disease, and old age. So they got rid of all the old people from the kingdom. So all you old people, go outside the city gates. Okay. Because I wouldn't have been allowed there at that time. So only people under 30. There's many of you. How old are you? Probably not.
50, over 50.
You wouldn't have been allowed in Buddhist kingdom. It's like really young people, young, beautiful, handsome people, healthy people. And wow. I mean, it was like Vaikuntha. No. Or like the heavenly planets are like that to a certain extent. There's no old people on the heavenly planets. Actually, people don't get old there. They just get kicked out. It's true. Actually, they get kicked out. You don't get old. No crying babies there. Everyone, as soon as they appear, they're full grown. No school. Everything is beautiful. So Buddha's family wanted his place to appear to be like Heavenly Kingdom. So he's there, he's very happy. Think of an extremely beautiful wife, and he's thinking, this, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And so, anyway, the story of Buddha is very interesting in this regard. And so then eventually, he goes out of the kingdom, takes a little horse, goes out of the kingdom and sees, an old man and a sick man. And he says to his driver, he's the chariot, "What's that?" And the driver says, as an old person. And he asked the driver, how did he get like that? Well, he got old. And am I going to become old like that? And the driver says, yes, sir. He's a sick person. All right, same thing happens. Am I going to get old sick like that? Yes, sir. Then he sees a dead body. It's like, that happened to me too. Yes, sir. So he says, I'm out of here. Sometimes, I mean, even I had personal experience that with my parents. My mother, I would say, don't you understand you're going to get old and die? And she says, we don't talk like that in our family. I said that to my brother, and he said, don't spoil it for me. It's like telling someone the end of a movie. You're watching a movie, and okay, Butler did it. You tell her who's guilty. Oh, you spoiled the whole movie for me. So we're spoiling the movie for people. Because we're telling them, this is the facts of life: birth, death, disease, old age. So Buddha, anyway, it's very interesting story. It's very much related. So the Buddha, he starts to undergo really harsh austerities. Really harsh austerities. And he almost dies from his austerities. Somehow or other he's given some cure, Mahaprashadam by somebody. And he doesn't die. And then he realizes that you're not going to become Krishna conscious or whatever. And he comes up with this thing called the middle path. You understand? Actually, Krishna also talks about Nityahara Viharasha, right? Nityahara Viharasha. One has to be moderate in his eating and bodily activities. Not fanatic in one way or the other. Not gluttonous. Gluttonous means acting like a pig. He speaks all day long.
Oh no.
But once we moderate, not sleeping too. Yeah, what does Krishna say in the Gita? The true yogi is not he or she who sleeps too much, sleeps too little, eats too much, or eats too little. Prabhupada said, if you eat too much, you get a certain diabetes. Prabhupada said, if you eat too little, you get tuberculosis. Prabhupada indicated this. And Prabhupada led a very balanced life. Sometimes you hear about these yogis who don't breathe for 200 years. Prabhupada actually said, this is funny, Prabhupada said a frog is a yogi. Did you know why? Because during the winter, you have frogs during the winter?
Yes.
During the winter, the frogs go under the water and they control their breathing. And when the ice lets up in the spring, the frogs come up again. And they have little frog babies. Tadpoles. So the frog is a yogi too in that respect. Prabhupada talked about it. He can control his breathing. So if you can control your breathing, that's yoga. So the Prabhupada was so balanced. He took care of his health, right? Prabhupada walked every day as, this really fast walk. When I used to walk with Prabhupada, I couldn't keep up. I was young. Prabhupada did this, what we call aerobic walk, right? Aerobic means gets the heart beating. Prabhupada followed the advice of a doctor. It was actually a doctor in New York who told him to do that. Prabhupada was practical. Prabhupada had a massage every day. And actually, not only massage, it went for an hour or two a day. Wow. It's not sense, right? Because Prabhupada understood the body belongs to Krishna, and he was using it for Krishna, and he took care. He wasn't fanatic. Prabhupada was following, his balance, a balanced life for serving Krishna. That's the point. And so Buddha understood this, and that's just, for ourselves, it's the same thing. We should have a very balanced life. So another point in this particular verse, and I'm going forever, is that Daksha is doing something Vedic, there's probably talked about this in the purport. He's doing something Vedic. His whole process of encouraging his children to have children is extremely Vedic. So, what do we make about that? So, Vedic, what does Vedic mean? Of course, it comes from the Vedas, but the Vedas, what is that? Shutina Vibhina. The Vedas are multi-branch. This is a verse from the Mahabharata. Takapratishta. You know that verse? Anyway, this is a verse spoken by Yudhisthira Maharaja in the Mahabharata. Takapratishta. The Vedas are multi-branch. Krishna in the Gita, what does he say? Trigunya Vishya Veda, these Trigunya Vavardhana. The Vedas mainly deal with the three modes of nature. So the reason they deal with the three modes of nature is to gradually elevate people through the modes to the transcendental realm. But if one takes injunctions of the Vedas out of context, then one can misunderstand the purpose of the Vedas. And what is the purpose of the Vedas? According to Krishna in the Gita, what? Anyone know 15:15? No? Sarvasya Chanam Vidisam Vishtam. Yeah, that's the purpose of the Vedas. So one has to know the purpose of something in order to do something properly. If you just take injunctions, let's say you're driving the car, you can say, turn the key. But that's not the purpose. The purpose is to go somewhere with the car. It's not the purpose of turning the key. That's part of the process. But if you keep turning the key, you'll destroy the action. Am I right? You grind the starter gear is so you know when to turn the key, when to put the car in first gear. If you put the car in first gear when you're going 80 kilometers an hour, you're going to destroy the transmission, right? Unless you got a racing car. Some racing cars you can do that with. I had one once. Like that, but you can't do that with a normal car. So the same way, you have to know what the goal is so you can actually pursue the goal. Otherwise, you become very confused. I mean, there's Vedic injunctions, different tantric injunctions for people in the mode of ignorance. Left-handed tantra. You heard of left-handed tantra? Where you eat meat, Madan, Matsya, Matunya, all these nice things in left-handed tantra. So you have to know when to apply these things, and that's why you need the guidance of the spiritual master. And the spiritual master, how do you understand who is a bona fide spiritual master? You understand by someone who is Samit Panishroshim Ramanishtam. That's probably quoted part of that person. Tadviganartam Sadhuru Veda Samit Panishroshim Ramanishtam. Someone who is following his spiritual master, following the Vedas, which are the father. I mean, sometimes the spiritual master is called the father. Sometimes the Vedas, it's interesting, they're called the mother. This is quite interesting, isn't it? Prabhupada said, how do you know who your father is? You have to go to the mother. Prabhupada used that as an example. You don't know your father, you ask your mother. Who is my father? Actually, there's that whole story in the Vedic literatures about such a Kama who didn't know who his father was. Another story. It's an interesting story. He went to Gautama Rishi. He said, I want to be your disciple. And Gautama Rishi said, what Gotra do you come from? Who's your father? And he said, I better ask my mother. He went back, asked his mother. His mother said, I don't know. She wasn't such a chase lady. And he went back to Gautama Rishi, and he told Gautama Rishi said, you're a real Brahmin because you told the truth. Most people would lie. Like Karna lied. about his particular situation. Anyway, so Prabhupada said you go to your mother, any mother would tell you, but so the Vedas are sometimes considered a mother, or sometimes the Vedas consider the favorable breezes that take you across the ocean of existence. But anyway, so we have to understand the purpose of the Vedas, and then everything becomes clear, and even you can understand Pravriti Marg and Nivriti Marg, which is mentioned here. Nivriti Marg basically means the path of renunciation, and Pravriti Marg means the path of sense gratification, or accepting, enjoying and just using Krishna consciousness as your excuse. Like such a Ryan Katab, something like that. You know what that is? Yeah. So that means where you go and you say, oh my Lord, please give me this. Or in Christianity, that's called prosperity gospel. You find these Christian ministers nowadays, especially in America, I don't know about here, who say, if you have God's mercy, you're going to be rich. And so the minister goes up there on the stage and he's showing how rich he is, and he has a beautiful young wife and everything is perfect. And then people become attracted to that. Like that. So that's like Pravriti Marg in a certain extent. So we are interested in gradually reducing things in this world. Not to such an extent, it has to be balanced, like I mentioned before, but forget about reducing, increasing our involvement in Krishna consciousness, our attachment to the holy names. Then automatically, Vasudeva Bhagavati, Bhakti Yoga Prayojita, Janayati Asu Vairagya, Yaducha Yadahartanam. Renunciation comes automatically. We don't worry about renunciation. It comes automatically from the higher taste, Vasudeva Bhagavati. When one performs devotional service to Krishna, Bhakti Yoga Prayojita, when one's connected in that way, Janayati Asu Vairagya, one ultimately becomes detached from passion. Vairagya. And then Krishna gives you intelligence. Krishna also says that too much. You got him a phone, same thing, isn't it? I give people intelligence. Also, in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Tesham Siddhati Yuktanam. Bhajatam Pratipur Bhakam, right? Bhami Buddhi Yoga Bhakam, Yanni Mam, the Antite. To those who are devoted to me, I give intelligence by which they can come to me. And I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy this in me. Ivanu Kampartam, Aham Gyan Jan Tamaha, Nashama Archabhavasto Janiti Pain of Ashvata, right? You know the verse? One of the nutshell. That I, with a torchlight of knowledge, I destroy the darkness of ignorance. Anyway, so the point is, don't worry. Just be practical in Krishna consciousness. Take guidance from someone who understands the purpose of Krishna consciousness and engage in appropriate renunciation. So for the Haryashvas, their appropriate renunciation, as we'll read later on, was to take sannyas. But not for everybody. Not for everybody. So any questions or comments? Questions, comments, arguments? Yeah.
So, Prajapati Daksh, like the four Kumaras are also sons of Brahma.
Yeah,
So,
they disobeyed Lord Brahma.
yeah, they disobeyed the instruction. But Prajapati Daksh, like he obeyed the instruction. I mean, that was his purpose really. But the result of that obedience was that he eventually became offensive.
Yeah, that's right.
He was like very proud of his beauty, and he had a goose head.
Yes.
And he ended up offending Shiva and Narad both.
Yeah.
So, is it only based on nature that we should obey the instruction, or
No,
we
that's
strive
an
with
interesting
harder?
question. Prabhupada answers that in the Bhagavad Gita in the purport. He says, blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. So The point with the Kumaras, I mean, I would have gone about it a little differently than the Kumaras. I would have revealed my mind to Lord Brahma and had a whole discussion. Rather than saying, no, no, Dad. But ultimately, they had a good relationship with Lord Brahma, and he got upset. And of course, Lord Shiva came out, Ruchas came out. He got upset, but he didn't condemn them. There's a difference. You know, sometimes you're planning to do something in Krishna consciousness. He controlled himself. You're planning to do something in Krishna consciousness, and then you may see it's not practical. And you may get upset, but he didn't condemn them. He didn't yell at them or anything like that. He didn't curse them. He could see that they had chosen the right thing, although he was upset. You know, sometimes even a great devotee gets frustrated in something. That's like, Prabhupada got upset with Mr. Nair in Mumbai, you know, really upset. You know, I'm not going to get into the whole story. It's really heavy. But Prabhupada got upset with his disciples. But sometimes but he's not condemning. He's ultimately Lord Brahma had a very wonderful relationship with the four Kumaras. There's so many stories later on. Lord Brahma goes somewhere, the four Kumaras are going there, and they're interacting and serving Krishna together. So there's no condemnation. It's just that sometimes one has to reveal the mind to the spiritual master. The spiritual master may not like what's in the mind. That's the way my disciple is, you know, got to deal with it like that. But then, you know, because revealing your mind, what is that? Dadati pratigurnati guya makyati prachanti. It's part of the process of Krishna consciousness. That's why Prabhupada said, blind following absurd inquiries are condemned. I can remember the one story where a devotee went to Prabhupada and he said, Prabhupada, I want to take sannyas. And Prabhupada said to him, no, you get married. And so basically, like 2 or 3 days later, he comes back with his fiance after wanting to take sannyas. And he says, I want to introduce you. So Prabhupada was also testing him too. So there's things going on that are not specifically mentioned. You know, Prabhupada was testing, and the person didn't pass the test. So that, you know, there's things below the surface that are going on between pure devotees that we may not be aware of or not explicitly described in the Vedic literatures. But we can understand that the four Kumaras, of course, they were Brahman realizing at least in the beginning, then later on. Pure Vaishnavas. But even Shukadeva Goswami, let's take his example. That Shukadeva Goswami, even though his father he was a pure devotee, Vyasadeva, wanted him to come out of his mother's womb, he didn't refuse. Right? He just said, I'm not coming out there, you know, because as soon as I come out, everybody's going to be nice to me. And I'll be a Maya. You know, like the child comes out, loving parents, and the parents go, oh, isn't he so nice? Isn't she so cute? Adorable. Parents are like that. My mother, up until, for her whole life, she kept my baby shoes on her altar, you know. She bronzes them, you know, you put metal on them, you put them on the altar, you know, use the shoes, lotus shoes, little tiny shoes, you know. So, anyway, that's natural. That's sort of affection. So, anyway, so Vyasadeva, he was saying to Shuka was in the womb, you know, please come out. And Shuka was refusing to do so because he was afraid, you know, all this affection and Maya. So eventually, he does come out after, you know, probably said 60 years at one point. After he understands he has a purpose in life. So he comes out, and then he also disobeys his father. right?
Yes.
His father saying, "Come back, oh my son." It says in the Bhagavatam, it says, only the trees and the mountains echoed his cry. Oh my son, oh my son, oh my son. And so he runs away and he thinks, Prabhupada explains this, and he's thinking, I gotta get rid of my father. So he produces a clone. You know the story? A duplicate of himself to go back with his father so his father will be happy.
Who did it?
Shukadev Goswami.
Well,
That's why you find in Bhagavatam there's some family tree with Shukadev. You know, so he produces that, and so his father goes back, okay, my son. And later on, he goes back to his father and studies with Bhagavatam more. That's also described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So you find these instances, you know, here's a pure devotee, Vasudev, you know, literary incarnation of the Lord, his son, Shukadev Goswami. I mean, some people describe Shukadev as Radharani's parrot, you know, I've heard that story before. So, and you got this, but this is an interaction between pure devotees. You know, it's also described that one cannot understand the mind and intelligence of, you know, pure devotee. So we don't take that as an example, but also Prabhupada said blind following and absurd inquiries are rejected. So I think we should take that into consideration. Like if Guru says to do something, we have a right to go to him in a humble way and say, you know, here's some additional information. Tamal Krishna Maharaj would be doing that with Prabhupada quite a bit. And he was Prabhupada's, you know, right-hand man.
Yeah.
So we're not meant to be just like little clones or robots or what AI or GPT. And GPT doesn't always listen to you either. You know, the first time I used GPT, I asked GPT, "Do you like me?" And GPT said, "I'm learning to." So, I mean, even GPT is not submissive. I was just reading something about dealing with GPT. So when you deal, you have to appreciate GPT. After you're doing something, you have to say you did a good job.
Yes.
As human characteristics to it, because it's programmed in. So, so anyway, so that's the relationship. You know, these are great personalities, and no one should try to understand. So no one should try to understand what's going on in their minds. These are pastimes, basically. What's happening with us is not necessarily pastime. So, good question. So, any other questions or comments? Yes.
Like we see that Daksha, though he was Brahma's son, but he was still making mistakes.
Yes.
Serious mistakes.
Serious. Yes.
So, does it mean that Krishna chooses us with looking at our mentality at that point of time, but he also wants us to advance?
Yes,
But in Daksha's case, we see he keeps making mistakes.
that's right. So
And,
we can keep making mistakes
and
too.
on the other hand, we see like Yamraj, he's like one of the
Maharaja.
Mahajans. So, but he does not make mistakes, but still we see him in that role.
He's a
also.
pure devotee. He doesn't
Yeah,
make
so
mistakes.
how does he advance? Or is there any chance like people advancing from their service to higher services or?
Well, pure devotee is always advancing. Because he has no impurities.
Yeah.
No impurities, but devotional service to Krishna is dynamic. It's not static. You can always you get higher and higher in the stages of love of Krishna. That's the difference between the love of the material world and love of Krishna. It's unlimited.
But then it's mentioned that Yamraj mentions to his Yamdoots that okay, it's very rare. Like we see this. What's the name? I forgot just now.
Ajamil?
Ajamil, yes, Ajamil. That okay, he is now taking Vishnu's name. I rarely when I'm trying to take care of other things, I really get to think about Vishnu. So basically, it seems that though he is doing perfect service, but still he's missing more association with Lord.
Not, that's why he decides to get cursed and appear as Vidura. But really, that was the reason I brought that verse out from the Bhagavad Gita, Brahmana Brahma Havi, Brahmana Brahmana Brahmatani Kanta, Brahmakar, Samana. He's thinking of Krishna because he's thinking of Krishna's service. It's important to understand this, that if we're thinking of serving Krishna, I was thinking of serving Krishna and the thinking, doing our service nicely, that's also the same as thinking of Krishna. That's what that verse says. Rama karma samana. If you're absorbed in your work, karma there means work, for Krishna, then that work is not different from Krishna. Like Prabhupada, when he was taking prasadam, he was meditating on the taste of the prasadam. He probably did not eat prasadam, he honored prasadam. You understand the difference? And so he meditated. Prabhupada, when he was taking prasadam, he would stand facing the wall. And he would just like meditate, take a long time chewing everything. And so when you're doing something for Krishna, it's ecstatic.
So it's something like a service in Virag, how like you gopis are doing for Krishna. Same thing Yamaraj is doing.
Well, it's ecstatic because you're serving Krishna. It's not that you have to meditate on Krishna's pastimes to do Krishna consciousness. You Prabhupada talked about dedicating oneself to the mission of the spiritual master, mission. So Prabhupada's, if you look at Prabhupada's meditation, of course I can't comment on what was going on internally with Prabhupada, but if you look at Prabhupada's meditation, he was always meditating on serving his spiritual master. That was his Eke Hakurunandana. The verse Vyavasaya Eke Hakurunandana. The Prabhupada, when he read Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on that verse, where Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur talks about one point of devotional service in relationship to the mission of the spiritual master, Prabhupada really focused on that. Of course, internally, like I said, don't know, that's not my business, what was happening with Sri Prabhupada. But externally, he was really focused on his mission. He was mission oriented. So that's a real hero, someone who is mission oriented. And so Yamaraj is mission oriented. He's not like enjoying torturing people. You may like that, I don't. But he's thinking, I have to do this. He doesn't get any appreciation for it. But sometimes he wants a vacation to go out and preach. He wants Sankirtan. So what does he do? He gets cursed by the Muni to take birth as a Shudra, Vidura. And he gets a chance to preach. He's in ecstasy, Vidura is in ecstasy. So, sometimes even doing some service, you need to get away for a while to preach.
And I think as Haridas Thakur also.
What?
And as Haridas Thakur also.
Oh yeah, Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur was Lord Brahman Prahlad Maharaj. Not Yamaraj. I haven't read it as Yamaraj. But anyway, and he goes to Kirtan too. Sometimes you may not see, you might be having Kirtan there in the temple in Yamaraj. Actually said that, and Bhagavatam actually says that, Prabhupada says that if you want to avoid death, then you have to have Krishna Katha going on. This is the first canto of Bhagavatam. And so when Yamaraj is present, no one will die. Because Prabhupada, Yamaraj will be a Bhagavatam class. That's there in the Bhagavatam. The Yamaraj will just be there in the Bhagavatam, no one gets opportunity to die. And there's one other story of Yamaraj that your wife should be like Savitri. She can save you from Yamaraj. You know the story? Savitri and Satyavan? You know the story?
Yeah, I remember.
She followed Yamaraj and convinced Yamaraj, tricked Yamaraj to give her back her husband. So every wife should be like Savitri. Okay, I think it's time for Prashadam, right? So thank you very much. All glories to His Divine Grace. Srila Prabhupada, Ki Jai.
It's always good. Maharaja ki jai.